Okay, let's get into this one. Picture this. August 13th, 1996. You've got a guy in Mobile, Alabama, just standing in an electronics store, recording himself on camera. Seems pretty normal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, totally mundane on the surface.
But then you find out this guy, he's actually a killer on the run.
Wow.
And at almost the exact same time, just over in Moss Point, Mississippi, there's an 18-year-old girl, Brook Weber, who's just pulled off this incredible escape from something truly horrific.
It's that contrast, isn't it? The hidden darkness right next to this desperate fight for survival.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into that story, the case of Brook Weber, who some called the girl in the butcher's box, and the murder of Jeffrey Wolfe.
And we're drawing this from a YouTube transcript, right?
It gives a really detailed account of these just terrifying events.
It's chilling stuff. The kind of story that make you think about, how well you really know anyone, the masks people wear.
Definitely. So let's lay out the key people here. We've got Gary Simmons. He's the killer, the one making the recording.
Okay.
Then Brook Weber, the young woman who escaped, incredibly brave. And Jeffrey Wolfe, the victim, only 21, his life just cut short.
Such a waste.
And we also need to mention Jeffrey's dad, Pascal, and Gary Simmons' wife, Lori. Her story is, well, it's deeply tangled up in all of this, too.
Right. So how do Jeffrey and Brooke even end up in this situation? It seems like it started pretty innocently.
Yeah, they'd met in Houston, Texas, just a few weeks before, in August '96. Jeffrey was really into Brooke.
Young relationship, just starting out.
Exactly. He even introduced her to his dad, Pascal, who apparently liked her a lot. And Jeffrey had this business trip planned to Mississippi, needed to collect some money.
Okay, so it wasn't just a joyride. There was a reason for the trip.
Right. And he asked Brooke to come along.
And that's how they end up at Gary Simmons' house in Mississippi.
That's it. They arrive on August 12th, late at night, and this is where Brooke gets her first, warning sign, her first bad feeling.
Oh.
What happened?
She said the house was completely dark, no porch light on, even though Gary knew they were coming.
That's odd.
Yeah, and she remembers seeing him sitting there on the steps, and she just thought he looked kind of creepy. Her words.
That gut feeling. Intuition.
Totally. But, Jeffrey had presented Gary as this friend, this business associate, so she trusted Jeffrey's judgment.
Which is understandable. You trust the person you're with.
Right.
We often override those little internal alarms, don't we?
Yeah.
Especially when someone reassures us.
It's so true. And then things take just a horrific turn. They're inside, in the kitchen, talking about the money, the business deal. Brooke isn't even really tuned in, thinking it'll be quick.
Just a normal conversation, seemingly.
And then suddenly, bang. Gunshots.
Oh, my God.
Jeffrey shot. Right through the chest. Falls right there in front of her.
No warning.
Just like that.
Just like that. And then she sees another guy she doesn't even know holding the gun. We later find out this is Timothy Milano.
A second person involved. Wow.
Her first thought, pure terror. She literally thought, oh, F, I'm going to die.
I can't even imagine. That shift from normalcy to absolute horror in a split second, and a stranger there too, that just ramps up the fear, the confusion.
And it gets worse. Fast. Gary grabs Brooke, drags her into another room.
Oh, no.
He hogties her hands and feet bound behind her back, gags her.
Oh, God.
And then he forces her into this human-sized wooden box and locks it.
A box. Like big enough for a person.
Exactly. Just locked inside. Total darkness, completely helpless. Can you even begin to comprehend that level of terror?
It's dehumanizing. More than just being tied up. It's like being buried alive. That complete loss of control, sensory deprivation. It's psychological torture designed to break someone.
And incredibly, the horror doesn't stop there. At some point, Gary takes her out of the box.
Okay.
And he makes this awful demand, basically implying her survival depends on sexual compliance.
Oh, no.
She was sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
And they put her back in the box.
Back in the box after that. That's monstrous. It's pure power, control, degradation, pushing her back into that helplessness.
Just leaving her there with the trauma, the fear, not knowing what would happen next. But she survives the night.
Incredible resilience already.
And the next morning, something happens. A 911 call comes in. Someone reports a young woman, clearly in shock, banging on their door.
Is it Brooke?
It's Brooke. She's got a butcher knife. She's frantic, just repeating, they shot him. They shot him.
She got out. How?
We'll get to the details of the escape, but yes, to go through all that and find the strength to break free.
Yeah.
It's just astounding.
She's just remarkable.
Yeah.
That image clutching a butcher knife, fighting for help, that's not just a victim anymore. That's just a survivor fighting back.
So the police get involved, obviously. They go to Gary's house.
What do they find?
Well, that's the creepy part. The house itself. It's weirdly clean, almost sterile, no obvious signs of struggle, no blood visible right away.
He tried to clean up.
Seems like it. But they do find the box, and the house is near a bayou. Investigators start looking around outside. They find blood drops on a boat, and nearby, a bloody axe.
Oh, God, no.
And that leads them to the bayou itself, where they find 88 pieces of human remains.
88 pieces. Oh, my God. Jeffrey
Wolfe. Dismembered. The contrast is just sickening, the clean house, and then this absolute butchery just outside.
The level of violence is extreme. And the calculation to clean the inside but dump the evidence like that, it's chilling.
While all this is unfolding, Gary does something else. He sends a VHS tape to his wife, Lori.
A VHS tape? What was on it?
It's him talking, saying it's a real mess, that it wasn't supposed to go like that. He sounds almost remorseful, but then he says he didn't have much of a choice after he took Jeffrey's money.
Didn't have a choice. After taking the money. That's trying to shift the blame, isn't it?
Yeah.
Minimizing the murder.
Completely. And the transcript notes he had a history of abusing Lori. So this tape is this really disturbing window into his mind. Self-pity, justification, control.
Yeah, that history of abuse is crucial context, isn't it? Suggests a pattern. This wasn't just out of the blue.
Not at all. And Lori's story. It adds another layer of horror. Turns out, early in their marriage, back in like 1990, Gary told her he liked to write short stories.
Okay, a hobby.
Seemed like it, until she found his binders, full of these graphic, awful stories about women being held captive, used as sex slaves.
Whoa. Okay, that's not just a hobby. That's deeply disturbing.
She confronted him, obviously horrified, and his response, he apparently said, well, these are my fantasies. I have secrets you know nothing about.
Chilling. That's more than a red flag. That's a blaring siren. Did she realize the danger then?
It's hard to say how much, but the abuse started physically, too. Not long after their first daughter was born, he forced himself on her. Marital rape.
Which back then wasn't always legally recognized or understood the way it is now, right?
Exactly. She was in shock, confused if it even counted as rape within a marriage. Then she found the box he'd built, like the ones in his stories.
He actually built one. Oh, my God.
When she confronted him about that, he attacked her, choked her unconscious, tied her to the bed, held a butcher knife to her face, like he was acting out those fantasies.
That's terrifying. He was escalating, bringing the fantasies into reality. She must have felt completely trapped.
Desperately. She did try to get help, went to the police about the rape and torture.
Yeah.
They told her there wasn't enough evidence.
Ugh. So frustrating. So common.
She tried to file for divorce, but found out she was pregnant again. And apparently, in Mississippi at that time, you couldn't get divorced while pregnant.
Seriously. Another barrier trapping her.
Yeah. She felt totally stuck, terrified for herself and her kids. Eventually, she did connect with domestic violence support groups, found an apartment, and managed to get herself and the kids out of the house.
Thank goodness. That takes incredible strength, navigating all those obstacles.
It really does. But here's another really tragic twist involving her family. Her younger brother, Timothy Milano.
Wait, Timothy, the guy who was there during this shooting?
The very same one. He'd actually been supportive of Lori after she moved out, helping her.
Okay. So what happened?
On the night of the murder, Timothy shows up at Lori's. Says Gary called him, needed his help with something.
And Lori knew about the abuse, right? She must have warned him.
She strongly objected, begged him not to go. But he insisted, said Gary sounded desperate, maybe threatened him. He promised he'd be back in an hour.
Let me guess, he wasn't.
Nope. Over 4 hours passed. Lori was frantic, calling Gary's house over and over, just hearing it ring and ring, going to the answering machine.
That unanswered ringing, that's actually connected to Brooke's escape, isn't it?
It is.
Oh.
While Larry's calling, Brooke is still in that box.
Yeah.
But the ringing phone actually wakes her up.
Wow.
She hears the answering machine pick up, maybe hears Lori's voice, and crucially realizes the house is empty. Gary and Timothy aren't there.
Her chance.
Her only chance. And somehow, even hogtied, she managed to work her hands free. She breaks out of the wooden box.
Unbelievable determination.
She grabs a butcher knife from the kitchen, the same kind Gary had threatened Lori with, and she runs for her life.
Go, Brooke.
But as she's escaping, she sees Gary's car returning.
Oh, no. Close call.
Terrifyingly close. She hides, watching him go back inside.
Huh.
A few moments later, he comes rushing back out, realizes she's gone, and speeds off in a panic.
He knew the game was up.
She waits until he's gone, then runs to the nearest neighbor's house, banging on the door, knife in hand. And that's when the 911 call is made.
What an incredible sequence of events. The phone call, the realization, the fight. Just wow.
So Brooke is now safe, relatively speaking, at the sheriff's department, but she starts overhearing things. Chatter about body parts being found in the bayou.
Oh, God. She must have realized.
Yeah, the horrible truth about what happened to Jeffrey. Meanwhile, Jeffrey's father, Pascal, gets the news. And guess who delivers it?
Not Timothy.
Timothy Milano. He tells Pascal that his son, Jeffrey, has been dismembered into 88 pieces.
How could he? The man who helped do it. That's beyond cruel. Imagine Pascal's grief and horror.
Unimaginable. And then Timothy goes back to Laurie's apartment. And he confesses.
To Laurie, what does he say?
He admits he helped Gary. Admits he shot Jeffrey. But he claims Gary threatened him, forced him.
Threatened him or not, he still participated. He pulled the trigger multiple times. Right?
Yes. The autopsy later showed Jeffrey was shot 7 times in the back, twice in the chest. Just brutal overkill.
And Pascal. The report said he felt utterly betrayed, right, because he'd actually helped Timothy out in the past.
Exactly. Just layers upon layers of betrayal and violence.
So what happens to Gary and Timothy?
Well, the next day, Gary actually calls the police himself. Says he wants to turn himself in.
Really? Where was he?
Bizarrely, they arrest him just a few blocks from Laurie's workplace.
That seems intentional, like a final act of control or something.
It feels that way. So both Gary Simmons and Timothy Milano are indicted for capital murder. And Brooke's testimony is obviously going to be absolutely vital.
But she must have been terrified even with them arrested.
Completely. Living in constant fear, knowing what Gary was capable of. The psychological impact doesn't just stop when the immediate danger is over.
No, it lingers for a long, long time.
The trial happens about a year later. Brooke has to get on the stand and face Gary Simmons in court.
That takes incredible courage. Facing the person who did that to you.
She said she was terrified, shaking, but she saw Jeffrey's parents there, and that gave her strength. She had to do it for Jeffrey.
Her testimony must have been powerful.
Devastatingly effective. The jury found them both guilty. Gary Simmons got the death sentence for murder, kidnapping, and the sexual abuse. Timothy Milano got life without parole for murder and kidnapping.
Justice served, in a legal sense at least. But
Yeah.
that doesn't just erase the trauma for Brooke, does it?
Not even close. The aftermath for her was long and difficult. She spent years living in fear.
Even with him on death row.
Yeah. She changed her name, her appearance, always looking over her shoulder, convinced he could somehow still get to her, maybe hire someone.
That sounds exhausting, living like that.
Totally. And sadly, she felt she had to cut ties with Laurie and even Gary's family. She had this misconception, this guilt, that they blamed her for Gary being in prison, that she'd ruined their lives, ruined the marriage.
Wow, carrying that misplaced guilt on top of everything else, that's heartbreaking. Trauma really does distort your perception of
It
things.
really does. She felt like she'd lost herself for years because of that fear and isolation.
So how did she ever start to heal from that?
Well, it took a long, long time. But then something unexpected happened in 2023, 27 years later.
What was that?
Brooke, now a mother herself, was finally ready to talk about her past more publicly. She was doing an interview, sharing her story.
That's a huge step.
Huge. And during that process, she found out that Laurie Simmons, Gary's ex-wife, had actually reached out. Laurie wanted to meet her.
Wow. After all that time, how did Brooke react?
Apprehensive, naturally. I mean, who wouldn't be? But also maybe curious, hopeful for some kind of closure. She agreed to meet Laurie.
That must have been an incredibly intense meeting.
Incredibly emotional. Laurie apparently just expressed this profound gratitude to Brooke. She called Brooke her hero.
Her hero. Why?
Laurie explained that Brooke's escape, her bravery in getting away and going to the police, is what finally exposed Gary and saved Laurie and her children from potentially even more harm. She said she'd thank God for Brooke every single day since 1996.
Oh my goodness, to hear that after carrying so much guilt.
It was overwhelming for Brooke. All those years thinking she was somehow responsible, and here was Laurie telling her she was a savior. It was this massive release, this validation she desperately needed.
What an amazing, unexpected connection. That shared trauma, but viewed from such different perspectives, finally meeting.
It was transformative for Brooke. That meeting really seemed to shift something fundamental inside her.
How so?
She realized she wasn't defined by what happened to her. She wasn't just a victim. She was a survivor. She started reclaiming her identity. She even said powerfully, "I am Brook Weber, period. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor." and we're going to make it through it.
That's incredible. Finding her voice, her strength, owning her survival.
Absolutely. So when you look back at this whole horrific story, the key takeaways are pretty stark, aren't they?
Definitely. You've got Brooke's unbelievable resilience, just sheer will to live.
Then Laurie's own nightmare, years of abuse hidden behind closed doors.
Timothy's betrayal, the brother who should have protected his sister getting drawn in.
And just the devastating ripple effect of Gary's violence on so many lives.
But then, against all that darkness, you have that final, unexpected moment of connection and healing between Brooke and Laurie decades later. It shows that hope can exist even after the worst imaginable things.
It really does. But it still leaves you with questions, you know?
For sure. Like, what makes someone like Gary Simmons tick? What drives that level of depravity?
And how do you even begin to rebuild your life after surviving something like that, living with that fear for so long?
Yeah. And what role do support systems or even these surprising connections like the one with Laurie play in actually finding a way to heal?
It's complex. Ultimately, I think this deep dive really hammers home the power of survival. Brooke's story is terrifying, but her strength is inspiring.
It is. And it shows that even in the face of absolute darkness, understanding, and maybe even some form of peace can eventually emerge, often in ways you'd never expect.
A really powerful reminder of the complexities of victimhood survival and that long, hard road toward healing. Makes you think.